Okay, here is the Whitebox stove. It did actually come in a little white box in the mail. It consists of 3 parts. The burner itself, which is a sort of a simple cup that has a hollow wall. The fuel can also flow in under the wall, and it's got these jets, a ring of jets around the outside, and the idea is that the fuel vaporizes, sprayed out of the jets and burns up the side here once a pot is set on top of it. We've got a little ground protector here that comes with the stove, and of course the windscreen. So I'm going to try to boil up a half a liter of water using 25 milliliters of my preferred fuel here, which is the 96% ethanol that I can get kind of used and discolored from my lab. So I'm just going to pour that fuel right in there, and you have to use a pre-measured amount of fuel. You're going to burn all that fuel. Anytime you start the stove, you burn all the fuel that you put in it. So it helps to know pretty well just how much fuel you're going to need for whatever cooking job you have. Lighting it is best done with a match, although I've certainly done it with a cigarette lighter. And you just got to touch that match to the fuel down on the bottom of the cup, and when it first starts to burn, you really can't see the flame at all, but you can feel it, and I can tell that that's going. Preheating will take about 2 minutes. Let's start a timer here. And the preheating process involves essentially bringing the fuel to a boil so that it vaporizes and starts shooting out of these jets around the side here. And when they ignite, or bloom as they say, the stove will be ready to use. One of the downsides of this is that you can't put the pot on until the stove has bloomed and is burning fully, and so those 2 minutes you're wasting a little bit of fuel that's burning away while the stove preheats. I guess you can use some sort of a primer ring with it, but it wasn't supplied with the stove and I haven't tried that. Before we fill up the pot and put it on, let me just point out that we do get some stove black on the pot from the stove. It does burn a little bit yellow. You're seeing a little yellow color there now, but that's not too dirty. It's not the kind of stove black as you get from a fire that rubs off and gets all over everything. So there's a little bit of a thing there. You might want to put your pots in a plastic bag, but it's not too bad. So we'll put our half liter of water in there. Get the pot ready to go. A few bubbles are showing up in the fuel now, but it probably needs another 30 seconds or so to ignite completely. Pretty soon now. Bubbling a little bit more violently. Now we got a full boil, and there goes the bloom. So I should probably put the windscreen on first, set the pot right on top, and you can see that the pot seals that center opening so that the only way for the fuel to get out now is through the sides. And here you might be able to see, well, you could see it a second ago, you get a little bit of a yellow in the flame. That's where some of that black comes from. So it's going to take a good 5 minutes to boil completely. So I'm going to stop the video and we'll start it up again when we're closer to a boil. So we're coming up on 6 minutes and we're getting a little bit of a boiling noise from the pot now. We'll wait until we see steam coming out from under the top. But this is the usual boiling time, at least in these conditions. It's a summer day in Trondheim, Norway. The temperature is about 55 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 12.5 Celsius. A little bit of a breeze. Pretty mild conditions to be running a stove under compared to what we get up in the mountains. And I don't recommend this stove for really harsh mountain conditions, but it's certainly good for summer cooking, where you can stay out of the wind a little bit. So I think we got some steam coming out from underneath the pot lid here now, and we have a pretty good boil at under 7 minutes this time. That's pretty good. Now I put in 25 mils. Another trial, 20 mils was just enough to bring it to a boil, and it went out immediately afterwards. Now I think we're going to have some residual fuel in here, it's going to keep it boiling for another minute or two. So let's see how long it goes. We'll have that. If you're wondering about the bandages on my fingers, they're not from operating the stove. They're from a different accident a few days ago. I'll spare you the details, but it has nothing to do with operating the stove. So we got about a minute of extra boil time out of the 25 mils of fuel. Still going, I think. My understanding is if you cook pasta, you can just bring it to a boil and then set it aside and let it cook as the water cools down. I haven't really tried that too much myself, but I've seen some people say that that's a good way to do it with this kind of stove. Oh, I guess my lens is getting fogged up from the steam. Yeah, clears again. We're now at coming up on 2 minutes. Still boiling. I think that boiling noise will stop once it's done. Yeah, that's it. There you go, a test run of the Whitebox stove.